Jake Harper stood at the edge of his wheat field, watching the sun rise over the Montana plains. The morning air was cold against his face, but he barely felt it. His right sleeve hung empty, pinned to his side. 3 years had passed since the war ended, but the pain still felt fresh. He walked to the old red barn where his tractor waited. Getting into the seat was harder now. Everything was harder with one arm. Jake had modified the controls himself, adding extensions and automated systems so he could operate it alone. His younger brother Danny had offered to help, but Jake refused. He needed to do this himself. He needed to prove he was still useful. The tractor roared to life and Jake guided it into the field. The Zafrani had come from the stars with their warships and weapons, demanding Earth's surrender. The war lasted 2 years. Millions died on both sides. Jake lost his arm in the final battle when a Zafrani plasma blast tore through his unit. He watched good soldiers die that day. He watched his best friend burn. When the aliens finally agreed to a truce, both sides were exhausted. Earth survived, but barely. The Zafrani withdrew, but some stayed behind. Refugees, they called themselves. People who fled the Empire's cruel rule. Jake hated seeing them in town. Every violet face reminded him of what he lost. Danny came out of the farmhouse carrying 2 cups of coffee. He was 23, 6 years younger than Jake, and still had both his arms. He climbed onto the tractor and handed Jake a cup. "You were up early again," Danny said. "Couldn't sleep," Jake replied. He never slept well anymore. The dreams always came. Explosions, screams, the smell of burning flesh. "Dad wants to talk to you about the South Field. Says we need to rotate the crops." Jake nodded. Their father Roy had run this farm for 40 years. He knew the land better than anyone. But Roy was getting old and his back hurt more each season. The farm would be Jake's responsibility soon, whether he was ready or not. They worked until noon, then drove into town for supplies. The small Montana town had changed since the war. A few alien refugees lived there now, working in shops and farms. The government encouraged integration, but most people kept their distance. Old habits died hard. Jake parked the truck outside Henderson's general store. The building was over 100 years old with a wooden porch and faded paint. He walked inside, keeping his eyes down. He knew people stared at his empty sleeve. He knew they whispered about him. "Jake Harper," Old Man Henderson called from behind the counter. "What can I get you today?" "Need fence wire and some engine oil," Jake said. While Henderson gathered the supplies, Jake wandered through the aisles. That's when he saw her. A Zafrani female stood near the back, stocking shelves. She had violet skin and amber eyes, and she moved with careful precision. When she noticed Jake watching, she quickly looked away. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. "One of them working here in his town." He turned to leave, but Henderson called out, "That's Lyra, hired her last month. Best worker I ever had." Jake didn't respond. He paid for his supplies and left. But the next week, when he returned to the store, she was there again. This time she was helping an elderly woman reach something on a high shelf. She smiled gently and spoke in broken English. The old woman thanked her warmly. Jake found himself coming to the store more often. He told himself it was just convenient, that he needed supplies. But part of him was curious. Lyra was different from the Zafrani soldiers he fought. She seemed smaller, gentler. She never wore armor or carried weapons. She just worked quietly, always polite to customers. One day, Jake's tractor broke down in the field. He spent an hour trying to fix it with one hand, growing more frustrated. When he finally gave up and walked to town, he was in a foul mood. He found Lyra outside the store, tending to some plants in large pots. "Your field has the yellow sickness," she said suddenly, pointing toward his farm in the distance. Jake stopped. "What? The wheat?" "I can see from here. The yellow sickness. It will spread. How would you know?" Lyra looked down at the plants in her hands. "On my world, I grew food. My family farmed for many generations. The yellow sickness killed many crops, but there is a way to stop it." Jake wanted to walk away. He wanted to ignore her. But he needed that wheat. The farm was barely profitable as it was. He couldn't afford to lose an entire field. "What do I do?" he asked. Over the next hour, Lyra explained crop rotation methods from her planet. She told him about companion planting and natural pesticides. She drew diagrams in the dirt, showing him patterns he had never considered. Jake found himself listening, then asking questions. She knew more about farming than anyone he'd ever met. "Why did you come to Earth?" Jake asked finally. Lyra's face darkened. The Empire demanded soldiers. My colony refused. We grew food, not war. They punished us. She was quiet for a moment. My family is gone now. Jake felt something shift inside him. She had lost people too. She knew what war cost. I'm sorry, he said. Lyra looked surprised. You fought my people. You have reason to hate me. I fought soldiers, warriors. You're not a warrior. No, Lyra agreed. I am farmer, like you. After that day, Jake found reasons to talk to Lyra whenever he came to town. She taught him about soil health and pest management. He told her about Montana winters and spring planting. Danny noticed the change in his brother. Jake seemed less angry, less withdrawn. The townspeople gossiped, of course. They saw Jake talking to the alien girl and made assumptions. Some were supportive. Others were disgusted. Jake didn't care what they thought anymore. 4 months after they first spoke, Jake invited Lyra to visit the farm. She walked through his fields with wonder in her eyes, touching the wheat stalks gently. She made suggestions about irrigation and fertilizer. She admired the sunset over the plains. It's beautiful here, she said. Like home, but different. Do you miss your world? Jake asked every day. But I cannot go back. The Empire would execute me as a traitor. She looked at Jake with those amber eyes. Earth is my home now. But it is lonely. Humans fear me. Others Zephrani call me weak for hiding among you. You're not weak, Jake said. You survived. That takes strength. Lyra smiled, and Jake realized something that scared him. He was falling in love with her. An alien, an enemy, someone from the race that took his arm and killed his friends. It made no sense. It was wrong by every measure. But when he looked at her, he didn't see a Zephrani soldier. He saw someone who understood loss. Someone who found beauty in growing things. Someone who was as broken as he was, trying to build a new life from the pieces. That night, lying in bed, Jake stared at the ceiling. His empty right sleeve was pinned beside him. He thought about Lyra's gentle smile and her careful hands tending to plants. He thought about how she never looked at his missing arm with pity, only acceptance. Maybe, he thought, some wounds could heal. Maybe some enemies could become friends. Maybe even something more. The next morning, Jake drove to town earlier than usual. He found Lyra opening the store. He had rehearsed what to say a dozen times, but the words still came out awkward. Would you like to have dinner with me? At the farm? Lyra's amber eyes widened. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, she smiled. Yes, I would like that very much. As Jake drove home, he felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Maybe his life wasn't over. Maybe there was still something worth fighting for. Maybe love could grow even in the hardest soil. Lyra arrived at the farm on a cool evening in early autumn. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a basket of vegetables from her garden. Danny answered the door and welcomed her warmly, though Jake could see the uncertainty in his brother's eyes. Their father Roy sat at the kitchen table, watching Lyra with a stern expression. Dinner was awkward at first. Roy asked pointed questions about the war and why Lyra left her people. She answered honestly, describing how the military regime forced peaceful colonists into service. She spoke about watching her village burn because they refused to send their children to fight. My father said no, Lyra explained quietly. He said we grew life, not death. The soldiers came 3 days later. Roy's expression softened. He understood loss. He had lost his wife to cancer 10 years ago. He knew what it meant to have everything taken away. By the end of dinner, Roy was showing Lyra old photos of the farm from decades past. Danny asked her questions about Zephrani agriculture, genuinely interested in her knowledge. Jake watched it all, feeling warmth spread through his chest. His family was accepting her. After that night, Lyra visited the farm every week. She and Jake worked the fields together, combining human and Zephrani farming methods. The results were remarkable. Crops grew stronger and healthier. Yields increased by 30%. Other farmers in the area noticed and started asking questions, but not everyone was happy. Some townspeople complained that Jake was betraying humanity by associating with an alien. Someone spray-painted hateful words on Henderson's store. The local Zephrani community wasn't pleased either. They saw Lyra as a disgrace, too willing to abandon her heritage. Jake didn't care. When he was with Lyra, the nightmares came less frequently. She understood his struggles in ways other humans couldn't. She had seen the same horrors. When his phantom pains grew worse, she taught him Zafrani meditation techniques. When she woke up crying from dreams of her dead family, he held her until the sun rose. 6 months after their first dinner, Jake knew what he wanted. He spent a week in his workshop, using his left hand and special tools to forge a simple metal band. It wasn't fancy, but it was made with care. He polished it until it shone like silver. He took Lyra to the high field at sunset, where the wheat swayed golden in the breeze. The sky was painted orange and purple. Montana had never looked more beautiful. "Lyra," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "I never thought I'd feel whole again after the war. But you make me feel complete. Not because you fix what's broken, but because you accept all of me, missing pieces and all." He pulled out the ring with his left hand, nearly dropping it in his nervousness. "Will you marry me?" Lyra stared at the ring, tears filling her amber eyes. She touched the small crystal pendant she always wore around her neck, the one she never took off. For a moment she seemed troubled, almost afraid. Then she looked at Jake and smiled through her tears. Yes, I will marry you." Jake slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. He felt like the luckiest man alive. He had no idea that his future wife was keeping a terrible secret. The next day, Lyra insisted they marry quickly. "Within a month," she said. Jake found it odd but assumed it was a cultural thing. Roy thought they should wait longer, get to know each other better, but he saw how happy his son was. He agreed to help plan a small wedding. The ceremony took place on the farm on a crisp October afternoon. Only 20 people attended. Most of the town stayed away, disapproving of the union. But a few friends came, including Jake's old army buddy Pete, who had lost both legs in the same battle where Jake lost his arm. Pete rolled his wheelchair up to Jake before the ceremony. "You sure about this?" Pete asked. "More sure than I've ever been about anything," Jake replied. "Then I'm happy for you, brother." The Zephrani consul, a stern male named Vex, came to perform the alien portion of the ceremony. He looked uncomfortable the entire time, as if being there physically pained him. He spoke the traditional words in the Zephrani language and Lyra repeated them. Jake noticed that Consul Vex kept staring at Lyra's pendant with an odd expression. The human ceremony was simpler. A local minister spoke about love conquering differences and building bridges between worlds. Danny served as best man, making jokes to lighten the mood. When Jake and Lyra exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye among the small crowd. "I promise to stand with you," Jake said. "Through every season, every hardship, every joy. You are my partner, my best friend, my home." Lyra's voice trembled as she spoke. "I promise to be loyal to you above all others, to protect what we build together, to give you my complete honesty." She paused and something flickered across her face. Guilt, perhaps. "From this day forward, you are my family." They kissed as husband and wife while the small crowd applauded. Roy wiped tears from his eyes. Danny whistled and hollered. Even Consul Vex nodded with what might have been approval before quickly leaving. The reception was simple but joyful. They served both human and Zephrani dishes. Music played from an old radio. People danced on the grass. For a few hours it felt like the war had never happened. Humans and aliens could coexist peacefully. Love could bridge any divide. But Jake noticed that Lyra seemed distracted throughout the celebration. She kept touching her pendant and glancing at the sky. Several times he caught her whispering in Zephrani, words he couldn't understand. When he asked if something was wrong, she smiled and said everything was perfect. As night fell, the guests departed. Roy and Danny retreated to the guest house, giving the newlyweds privacy. Jake and Lyra walked to the farmhouse together, hand in hand. The stars were bright above them, and somewhere up there were the Zephrani ships that had nearly destroyed Earth. Inside, Lyra grew more anxious. She paced the bedroom, wringing her hands. Jake had never seen her like this. "Lyra, what's wrong? If you're nervous about tonight, we can wait. There's no pressure. It's not that," she said. She stopped pacing and faced him. Her amber eyes were filled with tears. "Jake, I love you. Please remember that I love you. What I'm about to tell you will hurt you, but I need you to know the truth. I cannot start our marriage with lies between us." Jake felt cold fear creep down his spine. "What are you talking about?" Lyra reached up and touched her crystal pendant. "This is not just jewelry. It's a genetic suppressor. It hides my true nature." Her hand trembled on the crystal. I have worn it every day since I came to Earth, but its power lasts only 1 year. Tonight it runs out. I don't understand, Jake said. You will. In a moment you will understand everything and you will hate me. But please, let me explain first. Before Jake could respond, Lyra removed the pendant. The change was immediate and terrifying. Her violet skin darkened to deep purple, the color of a bruise. Her delicate frame expanded, muscles appearing where none had been before. She grew taller, broader. Her gentle amber eyes began to glow with an inner fire, bright and fierce. When she opened her mouth, her teeth were sharper than before. Jake stumbled backward, his mind refusing to process what he was seeing. This wasn't his wife. This was a warrior. This was the enemy. What are you? He whispered. Lyra's voice was deeper now, more commanding, but still held the same gentle tone he knew. My name is Lyra Zena. I am the daughter of Supreme Commander Zenavor, the one who ordered the invasion of your world. I am of the royal warrior bloodline, fourth in succession to the throne. Jake felt like he'd been punched in the gut. No, you said you were from a farming colony. You said your family was dead. I lied, Lyra said, tears streaming down her purple face. I was sent here as a spy. My mission was to integrate into human society, learn your weaknesses, and report back. A second invasion is being planned. I was supposed to help make it succeed. The room spun. Jake grabbed the dresser to steady himself. His wife, the woman he loved, was a spy. A princess. The daughter of the man who had killed millions of humans. The world he thought he knew shattered like glass. Why? He managed to ask. Why tell me now? Because in 3 days a delegation from my father arrives. They come to collect my intelligence and possibly take me home. If they discover I've been sending false reports, if they learn I've betrayed my mission, they will launch the invasion immediately. Earth is not ready. You will lose. Jake's legs gave out. He sat heavily on the bed, his mind racing. Everything was a lie. Their love, their marriage, all of it was part of some alien plot. But then he looked at Lyra's face. At the tears. At the genuine anguish in those glowing eyes. She could have kept lying. The pendant was depleted, but she could have run away. She could have disappeared into the night. Instead, she told him the truth on their wedding night. Why marry me? Jake asked. If I was just a target, why go this far? Lyra knelt before him, taking his left hand in both of hers. Because I fell in love with you. That was never part of the plan. I was supposed to marry someone important, someone with political or military connections. But I saw you in that store, saw your pain and your strength, and I couldn't help myself. Every day with you made the mission harder. Every moment in your arms made me love Earth more. So what now? Jake asked bitterly. Your people come and we all die? No, Lyra said firmly. I have a plan. But I need you to trust me one more time. I need you to believe that my love for you is real. Jake spent that night in the barn, unable to look at Lyra. He sat on a hay bale, staring at nothing, his mind spinning in circles. Every memory felt corrupted now. Every smile, every touch, every word might have been a calculated lie. The woman he loved didn't exist. She was a fiction created by an alien spy. But a small voice in his head kept asking questions. If it was all fake, why did she tell him? Why not keep pretending? The pendant ran out, but she could have claimed it was a medical device or jewelry. She could have made up another lie. Instead, she chose truth on the night that should have been the happiest of their lives. Dawn came slowly. Jake hadn't slept. His arm ached, the phantom pain worse than usual. He remembered the battle where he lost it. Remembered the Zafrani warriors cutting through his unit like they were nothing. Remembered his friends dying while he screamed. And now he had married into the family that ordered it all. Danny found him around 6 in the morning. His brother took one look at Jake's face and knew something was terribly wrong. What happened? Danny asked. Jake told him everything. About Lyra's true identity. About the spy mission. About the coming delegation and the threat of invasion. Danny listened without interrupting, his face growing paler with each word. So what do we do? Danny asked when Jake finished. I don't know. I should report her to the authorities. She's an enemy agent. Is she, though? Danny sat down beside Jake. She's been sending fake reports. She married you. She told you the truth when she could have kept lying. That doesn't sound like an enemy to me. She lied about everything. Yeah, at first. But people can change, Jake. You changed after the war. You came home angry and broken, and she helped you heal. Maybe you helped her change too. Jake wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Danny was right. The Lyra who arrived on Earth a year ago might have been a spy. But the Lyra who tended his fields, who laughed at his jokes, who held him during nightmares, that Lyra was real. He felt it in his bones. Even if I believe her, what can I do? I'm a one-armed farmer. I can't stop an alien invasion. No, but maybe you can help her try. Jake returned to the house around noon. Lyra was sitting at the kitchen table, still in her true form. She hadn't slept either. When she saw Jake, hope and fear warred in her glowing eyes. I'm listening, Jake said. Tell me your plan. Relief flooded Lyra's face. She stood and moved to the table, spreading out papers covered in Zephrani writing and crude drawings. My people respect strength, she began. They fear unpredictability. The first invasion failed because humans fought in ways we never expected. You used guerrilla tactics, turned our technology against us, and refused to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. My father called you all crazy. So we need to convince them we're even crazier now, Jake said. Exactly. We need to show the delegation that Earth has grown stronger, not weaker. That humans and Zephrani working together create something more dangerous than either species alone. Lyra explained her plan in detail. They would construct a demonstration facility that combined human and Zephrani technology. It would appear to be an agricultural center, but designed in a way that showed it could be rapidly converted to weapons production. They would gather both human and Zephrani refugees to work together, proving that Earth had turned former enemies into allies. The delegation will include my uncle, General Krovar, and a truth seeker, Lyra continued. The truth seeker is a telepath. He will be able to sense lies and fear, so everyone involved must genuinely believe that Earth can win another war. Even a hint of doubt will doom us. That's a lot to ask, Jake said. Earth barely survived last time. I know. But humans have something my people don't. You have hope. You believe you can overcome anything if you just keep trying. That stubborn refusal to accept defeat is your greatest weapon. Jake thought about it. The plan was insane, built on deception and bravado. But it might work. The Zephrani had underestimated humanity once before. Maybe they could be fooled again. I'll need to contact my old unit, Jake said, and we'll need the local Zephrani refugees to cooperate. That won't be easy. I can convince my people, Lyra said. I still carry royal authority. They will listen to me, even if they don't respect me. The next 72 hours were the most frantic of Jake's life. He called his former commander, Colonel Lisa Grant. She had retired after losing both legs in the war and now lived in town, working as a consultant for Earth's defense forces. When Jake explained the situation, she was silent for a long moment. You married a Zephrani princess spy, Lisa finally said. Jake, you really know how to pick them. Will you help? Do I have a choice? If she's telling the truth, we're all dead if this fails. Lisa paused. I'll mobilize what forces I can. We'll stage a military demonstration that will make those aliens think twice. Next, Jake gathered the local farmers. He stood in Henderson's store and addressed the 20 people who had assembled. Some looked skeptical. Others looked angry. But they all listened. I know I'm asking a lot, Jake said. I know you don't trust the Zephrani. I didn't either. But Lyra has been teaching us their farming methods for months. Our yields are up 30%. That's not luck, that's cooperation. And now we need to show her people that humans and Zephrani together are unstoppable. Why should we help her? Someone shouted. She's a spy. Because if we don't, there'll be another war. And this time we might not win. Old man Henderson stood up. I trust Jake and I trust Lyra. She's been working in my store for a year and she's never been anything but honest and kind. If she says this is our best chance, I believe her. One by one, others agreed. Not everyone, but enough. They would help build the demonstration facility. The Zephrani refugees were harder to convince. Lyra stood before them in her royal warrior form, and they bowed reluctantly. She spoke in their language, her voice commanding and fierce. She invoked ancient laws and blood oaths. She reminded them that Earth had given them sanctuary when their own empire wanted them dead. We owe these humans our loyalty, Lyra declared, and I am asking you to stand with them. Stand with me. A young Zephrani male stepped forward. You abandoned your people for a human. Why should we follow you? Because I didn't abandon my people, Lyra said. I'm trying to save them from a war they cannot win. The Empire sees humans as weak prey. We know better. We've lived among them. We've seen their strength. Help me show the Empire the truth, or watch both our species destroy each other. The refugees agreed, though some did so reluctantly. For 3 days, Humans and Zephrani worked side by side. They constructed a massive greenhouse facility using hybrid technology. Human engineers worked with Zephrani technicians to create something neither species could have built alone. The structure looked peaceful, designed for growing crops. But it was also built with reinforced walls, automated systems, and modular components that could be rapidly reconfigured. Jake worked alongside everyone using his modified tools and his left hand. He was exhausted, running on almost no sleep, but he kept going. When younger workers complained about the pace, Jake would remind them what was at stake. Colonel Lisa arrived with her military forces on the second day. She rolled her wheelchair to the construction site and surveyed the work with a critical eye. "It's good," she admitted. "Looks impressive. Now we need to make sure our people can sell it." Lisa drilled everyone on what to say and how to act. She explained Zephrani psychology based on military intelligence. They respected displays of strength and feared resourcefulness. Show no weakness, no doubt, no fear. On the third morning, Jake woke before dawn. Today, the delegation would arrive. He dressed in clean clothes and looked at himself in the mirror. His empty right sleeve was pinned neatly. His face was scarred from the war. He looked like a man who had suffered and survived. Lyra stood beside him in her true form. She wore formal Zephrani armor, the kind reserved for royalty. She looked every inch the warrior princess she was born to be. But when she took Jake's hand, her grip was gentle. "Are you ready?" she asked. "No," Jake said honestly, "but I'll do it anyway." "That's what humans do," Lyra smiled. "That's why I love you." They walked outside together. The hybrid facility stood complete, impressive and slightly threatening in the morning light. Human and Zephrani workers stood ready, dressed in matching uniforms that blended both cultures. Colonel Lisa waited in her wheelchair, flanked by soldiers in exoskeletons that enhanced their strength and speed. Above them, the sky began to darken. A massive Zephrani warship descended through the clouds, its hull gleaming with weapon systems. It was designed to intimidate, and it worked. Several of the younger workers took involuntary steps backward. Jake felt his heart hammering. This was it. In the next few hours, they would either save Earth or doom it. Everything depended on their ability to sell a lie, to make the Zephrani believe that humanity had become too dangerous to fight. The ship landed in the field beyond the farm, crushing wheat beneath its weight. A ramp extended and figures began to descend. First came warriors in full battle armor, their weapons ready. Then came a tall, imposing Zephrani male covered in scars. He wore the insignia of a general. Behind him walked a thin, pale Zephrani whose eyes were solid white. The truth seeker, the one who would sense any lies or doubts. General Krovar strode forward with the confidence of a man who had never known defeat. General Krovar moved through the assembled crowd like a predator inspecting prey. His warriors fanned out, scanning for threats with weapons held ready. The truth seeker followed silently, those white eyes seeing far more than the physical world. Lyra stood at attention, showing no fear.
Jake remained at her side, his left hand relaxed.
He had learned in the war that showing tension was the same as showing weakness. The key was to project confidence even when your heart was racing. "You have been on this world for 1 Earth year," Krovar said to Lyra. "Your reports claimed the humans were developing advanced weapons. Show me." "Uncle, the humans are not developing weapons," Lyra replied calmly. "They are developing something more dangerous. They are learning to turn everything into weapons. Follow me." She led the delegation toward the hybrid facility. Jake walked beside her while Danny and Roy stood with the other farmers. Colonel Lisa rolled her wheelchair forward to join them, her mechanical leg braces gleaming in the sunlight. "This is their agricultural center," Lyra explained as they approached. "They use it to grow food. But watch." At her signal, human technicians began demonstrating the facility's capabilities. Walls slid apart to reveal modular sections. Growing beds retracted into the floor. The peaceful greenhouse transformed before their eyes into something that could easily house manufacturing equipment or weapons assembly lines. "Impressive architecture," Krovar admitted. "But I see no actual weapons." "That's the point," Jake spoke up. The general's eyes fixed on him, and Jake felt the weight of that stare. This was a being who had killed thousands in battle. But Jake had faced Zephrani warriors before and survived. He met the general's gaze steadily. "We don't need permanent weapons facilities. We can convert anything. Every factory, every farm, every building, and every city can become a production center within days." Bold words from a crippled farmer, Krovar said, looking pointedly at Jake's missing arm. I lost this fighting your warriors, Jake replied, and I'm still standing. That should tell you something about how hard humans are to kill. The truth seeker stepped closer to Jake, those white eyes boring into him. Jake felt pressure in his mind like invisible fingers probing his thoughts. It was deeply uncomfortable, invasive, but he didn't look away. He thought about the wheat fields burning during the war. He thought about his friends dying. He thought about how humans rebuilt everything the Zephrani destroyed. The truth seeker spoke for the first time, his voice a whisper that somehow carried to everyone. This one's mind burns with defiance. He believes what he says. He truly thinks they would win. Krovar looked surprised. One damaged human believes in victory. That means nothing. Then speak to the rest of us, Colonel Lisa said, rolling her wheelchair forward. The general looked down at her with disdain, seeing only a broken soldier in a chair. Lisa smiled coldly. I lost my legs in the final battle. Would you like to see what we did about that? She pressed a button on her chair. The mechanical braces attached to her legs hummed with power. She stood up, supported by the exoskeleton rising to her full height. The machinery whirred as she took a step forward, then another. The braces enhanced her strength, making each movement powerful and precise. Every wounded soldier from the war has been fitted with enhancements, Lisa said. The ones who lost arms got stronger mechanical ones. The ones who lost legs got faster ones. You didn't just hurt us, General. You improved us. You made us upgrade ourselves. Krovar's expression was unreadable, but Jake saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Concern, perhaps. Or respect. Show me your military forces, the general demanded. Lisa led them to the field where human soldiers waited in formation. They wore exoskeletons similar to her leg braces, but covering their entire bodies. When Lisa gave a command, they demonstrated their capabilities. Soldiers lifted massive weights with ease. They ran at speeds that would have been impossible for unenhanced humans. They moved with a coordination that came from shared battlefield experience. These are just local defense forces, Lisa explained. Every major city has units like this. We learned from our losses. We adapted. That's what humans do, General. We take every defeat and turn it into a lesson. The truth seeker was examining the soldiers, and Jake saw him tense. They are not lying, he reported to Krovar. They genuinely believe their forces could resist another invasion. Belief and reality are different things, Krovar said. But his voice lacked its earlier certainty. Lyra spoke up. Uncle, let me show you the most important thing. Not our facilities or our soldiers, but our people. She brought the delegation to where humans and Zephrani worked together at the hybrid facility. They saw an elderly human woman teaching a young Zephrani male about local soil conditions. They saw a Zephrani engineer explaining advanced technology to human students. They saw children of both species playing together without fear. In 1 year, they turned us from conquerors to neighbors, Lyra said. They gave our refugees homes, jobs, and safety. They forgave us for the war, and in return, we taught them everything we know. Every Zephrani refugee is now sharing their knowledge with humans. Every military secret, every technological advantage, every tactical strategy. We gave it all to them, Krovar's face darkened. You committed treason. I committed survival, Lyra countered. I saw what these humans are capable of. Yes, we won battles in the war, but we never broke their spirit. They kept fighting even when it seemed hopeless. They lost millions and kept coming. What do you think happens if we invade again? We might win the military campaign, but we'll never win the occupation. They'll fight us forever in every city, every town, every home. And every day they'll learn more from the Zephrani who live among them. Jake watched General Krovar process this information. The warrior was clearly struggling with what he was seeing. Everything contradicted what he expected to find. The truth seeker stood nearby, confirming that no one was lying about their beliefs or capabilities. The Supreme Commander will not accept defeat, Krovar said finally. He will demand proof that invasion is unwise. Then I will give him proof, Lyra said. She turned to Jake. May I tell them? Jake nodded, unsure what she meant. Lyra placed a hand on her stomach. I am carrying a child. Jake's child. This should be impossible. Zephrani and humans were never meant to be genetically compatible. But life finds a way, as humans like to say. The announcement struck like a thunderbolt. Krovar's eyes widened. The truth seeker actually stepped backward. The Zephrani warriors whispered among themselves in shocked tones. That's impossible, Krovar said. Our species cannot interbreed. And yet it happened, Lyra replied. This child is proof that our species are not as different as we thought. It is proof that we can build a future together. But more than that, it invokes ancient law. You know the law I mean, Uncle. Crovar's jaw tightened. The law of blood union. Any royal family member pregnant with offspring from another species creates a bond between those species that cannot be broken without bringing shame upon the entire bloodline. Exactly, Lyra said. If you harm Earth now, you harm my child. Your blood. The Supreme Commander's grandchild. You would bring dishonor to the entire royal family. Jake was reeling from the revelation that Lyra was pregnant. They had only been together for months. He should have been overjoyed, but the timing seemed almost too convenient. Had she known before today? Was this part of her plan all along? But looking at her face, seeing the tears in her glowing eyes, he believed this was real. This wasn't manipulation. This was his wife fighting for their future in the only way she knew how. Crovar was silent for a long time. Jake could see the general's mind working, calculating options and consequences. Finally, he spoke. You have put me in an impossible position, niece. If I report what you have done, you will be executed for treason. Your child will die before it is born. But if I report that Earth is too strong to conquer, I look like a coward. There is a third option, Lyra said. Report that Earth is not worth conquering, but that an alliance would be beneficial. The humans have technology we lack. They have agricultural methods that could feed our colonies. They have a stubborn creativity that could solve problems our rigid military culture cannot. Frame it as an opportunity, not a defeat. The Supreme Commander hates humans, Crovar said. He hates humans because he doesn't understand them, Jake interjected. He sees us as primitive and weak. But we're not. We're different. We think differently, fight differently, live differently. Maybe that difference could be valuable to the Empire instead of threatening. The truth seeker approached Crovar and whispered something only the general could hear. Crovar's expression shifted subtly. He looked at Jake with something that might have been respect. The truth seeker says you truly love my niece, Crovar said to Jake, that you would die to protect her and your unborn child. He says your mind contains both the fury of a warrior and the patience of a farmer. He says you are more dangerous than you appear. I'm just a man trying to protect his family, Jake said. But yeah, if you threaten them, you'll find out exactly how dangerous I can be. Crovar actually smiled, though it was not a pleasant expression. Perhaps Lyra chose better than I thought. He turned to his niece. I will report that Earth has developed sufficient The weeks following the delegation's departure were tense. Jake and Lyra waited for news, unsure if Crovar would keep his word or if Zifrani warships would appear in the sky. Every night Jake checked the horizon for signs of invasion. Every morning he woke expecting the worst, but no ships came. Instead, a formal communication arrived from the Zifrani Empire. Earth's government was contacted directly. The message was cold and formal, but its meaning was clear. The Empire had no interest in further conflict at this time. Diplomatic channels would be established. Trade agreements could be discussed. The war was truly over. Jake read the news on his phone while sitting in the wheat fields. Relief washed over him so strongly that he actually laughed. They had done it. A one-armed farmer and an alien spy had prevented a war. But peace came with a price. The Zifrani government declared Lyra a traitor and stripped her of her royal titles. An official death warrant was issued, though it would only be enforced if she ever returned to Zifrani space. She was now a permanent exile, cut off from her people and her heritage forever. Lyra took the news quietly. Jake found her in the barn, sitting alone, her warrior form slumped with sadness. He sat beside her without speaking, just being present. After a while, she leaned against him. I knew this would happen, she said. But knowing and experiencing are different things. I will never see my homeworld again. Never walk in the gardens where I played as a child. Never visit my mother's grave? I'm sorry, Jake said. Don't be. I chose this. I chose you. I chose Earth. She placed his hand on her growing belly. I chose our future over my past. I don't regret it, but I am allowed to grieve what I lost. Yeah, Jake agreed. You are. Life slowly returned to normal, or as normal as it could be when you were married to an alien princess carrying a hybrid child. The farm thrived under their combined efforts. Other local farms adopted their methods and saw similar success. The small Montana town became known as a model for human Zifrani cooperation. But not everyone was happy about it. Some humans still hated all Zafrani and saw Lyra as a symbol of everything wrong with the peace. Someone threw a rock through their window one night with a note calling her a monster. Danny wanted to find out who did it, but Jake stopped him. Anger won't help, Jake said. We just keep living our lives and showing them that fear is wrong. The Zafrani community was also divided. Some refugees saw Lyra as brave for defying the Empire. Others saw her as a disgrace who had dishonored herself by marrying a human. A group of Zafrani purists confronted her at the store one day, demanding she leave town. Lyra stood her ground. I am not leaving, she said firmly. This is my home. If you cannot accept that, then you are the ones who should go. They backed down when Jake arrived with Danny and several other farmers. The message was clear. Lyra had allies who would protect her. As Lyra's pregnancy progressed, doctors on both sides of the species divide studied her with fascination. The child developing inside her was unprecedented. Medical experts couldn't agree on whether it was even possible, yet here it was happening. Some called it a miracle. Others called it an abomination. Jake just called it terrifying. He was going to be a father, and he had no idea what that meant when the child was half alien. Would it be healthy? Would it look more human or more Zafrani? Would it face a lifetime of discrimination from both species? Colonel Lisa visited often during those months. She had become a friend to both Jake and Lyra, and she helped them navigate the political complexities of their situation. Earth's government wanted to study their child. The Zafrani Council wanted access as well. Lisa helped them set boundaries. Your child is not a science experiment, Lisa said firmly at one meeting with government officials. It's a baby, a family. You will respect their privacy or deal with me. No one wanted to deal with Lisa. She might be in a wheelchair, but she was still terrifying when she wanted to be. 6 months into the pregnancy, Lyra went into labor. It happened suddenly, weeks earlier than expected. Jake was in the field when Danny came running, shouting that Lyra needed him. They rushed her to the hospital where both human and Zafrani doctors waited. The birth was complicated. The baby was caught between two different physiologies, and neither species fully understood what was happening. Jake sat beside Lyra, holding her hand, feeling completely useless. She was in pain, real pain, and he couldn't do anything to help. I'm here, he kept saying. I'm right here. Lyra gripped his hand with crushing strength, her warrior muscles contracting. Don't leave me, she gasped between contractions. Never, I'm not going anywhere. After 12 hours of labor, their daughter was born. The doctors cleaned her quickly and handed her to Lyra. Jake stared at the tiny bundle in his wife's arms, unable to quite believe what he was seeing. She was beautiful. Her skin was a soft lavender color, lighter than Lyra's purple but not quite human pink. She had Jake's nose and Lyra's amber eyes. Tiny fingers gripped Lyra's hand with surprising strength. When she cried, the sound was perfectly normal. Perfectly baby. She's perfect, Jake whispered. Hope, Lyra said. We'll call her Hope, because that's what she represents. Hope for both our peoples. Word of Hope's birth spread quickly. News crews wanted interviews. Scientists wanted to study her. Politicians wanted to use her as a symbol. Jake and Lyra refused it all. They took their daughter home to the farm and surrounded her with family and friends who loved her for who she was, not what she represented. But they couldn't hide forever. 2 months after Hope was born, visitors arrived. Not Zafrani warships this time, but a smaller diplomatic vessel. Jake's heart raced as he watched it land, fearing what it might mean. A single figure emerged. It was General Krovar, but he wasn't wearing battle armor this time. He wore formal diplomatic robes and carried no weapons. He approached the farmhouse slowly, clearly uncomfortable. Jake met him at the door, deliberately standing in the doorway to block entry. What do you want? To see my grandniece, Krovar said, and to deliver a message from the Supreme Commander. We don't want anything from him. I understand, but I am asking you to hear me out. As family. Lyra appeared behind Jake, carrying Hope. The baby was sleeping peacefully, unaware of the tension. Krovar's harsh face softened when he saw them. She looks like your mother did as a child, he said to Lyra. Before the war, before everything became about conquest and glory. What does my father want? Lyra asked coldly. Krovar pulled out a small data device. He has officially pardoned you. The death warrant is rescinded. You are welcome to return home if you wish, Lyra tensed. Why, what changed? The child changed everything. When I reported that you had a daughter half human and half Zephyrini, it created chaos in the Empire. Some called it proof that the species were meant to unite. Others called it an abomination. But your father, he saw something different. He saw an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? Jake asked suspiciously. Peace. Real peace, not just absence of war. Your daughter is a bridge between our peoples. She's proof that we can coexist, even merge. The Supreme Commander wants to use that. He wants to establish formal relations with Earth, and he wants you and your family to be ambassadors. No, Jake said immediately. We're not political tools. I told him you would say that, Krovar said. So he authorized me to offer alternatives. You can return to Zephrani space and live in safety. You can stay here and never be bothered again. Or you can help build something new. Not as pawns, but as partners. Your family could be the foundation for lasting peace between our species. Lyra looked at Jake. They had a silent conversation, the kind only married couples can have without words. Finally, she turned back to her uncle. We will stay here, she said, on this farm. But we will work with both governments to promote understanding and cooperation, not as ambassadors bound by protocol, but as a family showing what's possible. That's our offer. Krovar considered this. I believe the Supreme Commander will accept. He's old, Jake Harper. The war cost him greatly. He wants peace before he dies, even if he won't admit it publicly. Your child gives him an honorable way to achieve that. As long as he understands that hope is our daughter first and a symbol second, Jake said. She gets to grow up as a normal kid, not a political pawn. Agreed. Krovar stepped closer and looked at the sleeping baby. May I hold her? Lyra hesitated, then carefully transferred Hope to her uncle's arms. The fierce general held the tiny child with surprising gentleness. Something like pain crossed his scarred face. I lost my own children in the war, he said quietly. Both sons dead in battles that meant nothing. When I look at her, I see a future where children don't have to die for empires and glory, where they can just be children. He handed Hope back carefully. I will report your terms to the Supreme Commander. I believe he will agree. And Lyra, your mother would be proud of you. She always hated the war. She would have loved this little one. After Krovar left, Jake and Lyra sat together on the porch watching the sun set over the wheat fields. Hope slept between them in a small cradle Roy had built. Danny was working in the barn. Roy was making dinner in the kitchen. It was peaceful and ordinary and perfect. Do you think it will work? Jake asked. Real peace, I mean. I don't know, Lyra admitted. But we gave it a chance. That's more than most people get.